In Thursday's edition of 2020 Daily Trail Markers, presidential hopefuls are focusing on faith outreach in South Carolina in hopes of winning over Black voters. Former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign has hired a faith outreach director in the state. His campaign also rolled out a list of 39 new endorsements from local pastors and faith community leaders. Biden is currently leading the polls in the Palmetto State. 2020 campaign reporter Lacrai Mitchell has been following the election from the early contest state of South Carolina, and she joins me now from Charleston. Lacrai, thank you so much for being with us. Why is it important for campaigns to mobilize faith communities, especially Black churches, and particularly in South Carolina?
You know, Elaine, it really boils down to this. I've talked to local pastors in the area, and the best way I've heard it put yet is that the Black church is the conscience of the community here. And so, you know, it's not just a place where people gather. It's a place where people, they link their identity to the church, right, and their spirituality. And it's a place for political organizing, and it has been traditionally as well. So in a state here like South Carolina, a southern state in the Bible Belt, you're going to see that faith communities are going to be a huge target for campaigns, because if they don't mobilize faith communities, I've had another person put it to me like this: they don't stand a chance here in South Carolina. And so you've got to see, you're going to see with a lot of these big campaigns, and like you saw today with former Vice President Biden, they are going to hire faith outreach directors. They are going to have phone calls with political leaders and meetings and roundtables, because they're going to make sure that they have a connection with these groups.
So what are current campaigns doing to connect with pastors and faith leaders throughout South Carolina?
That's a great question. And so you have a couple of different things happening. You have some campaigns like Senator Cory Booker. He has a weekly call with faith leaders that his faith outreach director has organized. You've got different people who are meeting with pastors. You know, former Vice President Biden is who's in the news today. He's been doing that. You see Senator Kamala Harris doing that here. And all of your front runners, for the most part, Senator Warren, too, they've been having meetings with these leaders, going to churches every time they come. I had Senator Bernie Sanders, communications director, tell me today that he's visited a church every Sunday that he's been in the state. And the same for other campaigns, too. You know, they're making sure that they're going to these services, but not just to have their regular stump speeches. And I think that's important to mention. You know, I spoke with President Barack Obama's former faith outreach director, Michael Weir, today, and he said it's important for candidates to remember that the church is not just a gathering place where you can come and bring your regular stump speech to voters. You have to recognize that the church is a place of identity for people, and so you're going to have to switch up your message, which you saw, for example, with Senator Warren over the weekend when she visited Reed Chapel AME in Columbia. She made sure to incorporate a story of her being a Sunday school teacher, the importance of scripture in her life, and her call to action in terms of her running for president now.
Interesting. Well, how have we seen faith outreach efforts materialize in past elections?
Well, you can go all the way back to 2008 when President Obama had gospel concerts taking place across the state in South Carolina, and he had these faith forums that he organized. You can even bring it back to 2016, where on Hillary Clinton's campaign, they were making sure to have some of those weekly calls, like I mentioned, with some of the current candidates, with political faith leaders, and even President Trump in the run-up to South Carolina's GOP primary, the Republican primary, he was meeting with faith leaders in the area too, as I spoke with the South Carolina GOP chair here today, who at the time was the RNC leader for their faith initiative project. Drew McKissick was telling me that, you know, even President Trump made sure to meet with leaders here in town as well. So you have a long history here of people making sure to, you know, make their rounds, as I would say, because they know that they have to be able to tap into that. But it's not just making rounds with the leaders, as it was pointed out to me. You know, in terms of President Trump's campaign strategy, what I thought was interesting in talks today that I had with Chairman McKissick was that, in addition to that, you know, a week before South Carolina's Republican primary, Ted Cruz had secured the endorsement of 300 South Carolina pastors. President Trump went on to win the primary here, and McKissick said it's because even though the leaders support certain candidates, that doesn't mean the congregants always do. So you have to make sure you're also speaking to the congregants as you're coming and making these rounds as well.
Wow, really fascinating to hear that perspective. All right, Lacrai Mitchell for us in South Carolina. Lacrai, thank you very much.
Thank you.